Friedman and Rosenman classify people into two categories: type A personalities and type B personalities. Type A's are hard driving, competitive, and ambitious. Type B's are more relaxed and easygoing. One factor that differentiates these two groups is the chronically high level of frustration experienced by type A's. To demonstrate this phenomenon, separate samples of type A's and type B's are obtained. Each participant is given a questionnaire to assess his or her level of frustration. The data are provided below. Perform an Fmax test to establish that the two samples have homogeneous variance. Then use a one-tailed test with an alpha of 0.05 to determine if type A group reported greater frustration than the type B group. So the first thing we must do is establish the Fmax test, and the formula for the Fmax is Fmax is equal to the large variance divided by the small variance. And so we get 740 divided by 660, and then the 740 and 660 comes from the sum of squares that were listed in the table provided in the problem. And when you divide these two numbers, you get 1.12. So by looking at our variance, our Fmax here, that is 1.12, we can see that it is very close to 1, which means that our data does have some homogeneous variance, so things are similar so far. The next thing we do is to perform a one-tailed test, and the first thing we need to determine is our t-value, which equals 1.761. And for a one-tailed test, we're going to have our null hypothesis be the population mean is less than or equal to 0, and then the alternative hypothesis is the difference of the population means is greater than 0. And we do that instead of doing equal to 0 or not equal to 0 in a two-tailed test. So now that we've established that, we first need to do our pool variance in order to start on our first step towards getting our t observed. So the pool variance formula is pool variance equals sum of squares 1 plus sum of squares 2 divided by degrees of freedom 1 plus degrees of freedom 2. Degrees of freedom 2. And again, in the chart, it says that our sum of squares 1 is 740 plus 660, which is our sum of squares 2, divided by 7 plus 7, which is our degrees of freedom for the type A column and the type B column. And then you get to 1400 divided by 14, and then the answer you get is 100. So now that we have 100 as our pool variance, we can now go ahead and erase the pool variance formula here, and we can then move on to our estimated standard error formula, which is S and then M1 and minus 2, which is the difference of the means, and then we're gonna do our square root, and then we're gonna do our pool variance, which is 100 divided by our N1, which is gonna be 8, plus again 100, which is our pool variance that we just figured out a few minutes before, divided by 8 again, because 8 is also the same number of people measured in type B personalities as well. And so then we do our square root again. We get 12.5 plus 12.5, and then that's gonna equal a square root of 25, which then equals 5. So now we've determined our estimated standard error, which is 5. So then we can go ahead and erase that for more room. Okay, so now that we have our estimated standard error and our pole variance numbers, we can go ahead and plug those into our T observed. So T observed, and that's going to equal M1 minus M2 over SM1 minus M2, which is going to be 84 minus 71 over 5. And again, we got the 5 from the estimated standard error, and the 84 we got from the mean of type A in the chart, and then the 71 is the second mean of the type B in the chart. And so you subtract those two, divide by 5, and that's going to be 13 over 5 over 5, and then that's going to end up being 2.6. So now we can see that our T observed is 2.6. And so now we can draw a little bell curve just to get a visual, and our critical region is going to be here, and it's going to be shaded this way, and then we take our T value 1.761, and then we have to see if we are going to reject or fail to reject the null hypothesis based on our T observed compared to our T value. And so here's 1.761, but 2.6 falls kind of over this way. So we can see that it does fall in the critical region, and because it falls in the critical region, we end up rejecting the null, concluding that there is a significant difference in frustration in type A group versus the type B group. And then if you want to go even further, I'm sure that you could do 2.6 is greater than 1.761, just to be consistent with our hypotheses here. Let's kind of break that off a little bit. Okay. So again, we reject the null, and then we can actually erase some of this. Alright. I'm not sure if you do the Cohen's d or the r squared, but if you were to, then you do r squared equals t2 over t2 plus df, which is 2.6 squared over 2.6 squared plus 14, which is our degrees of freedom, equals 1.389. Yeah, so there we are.